earth is going on here, seriously, in the justice system, in the prison system? Does David Lammy have any grip? Does he have any concept of how to do his job? He said in Parliament, "I know I'm the Justice Secretary." Well, does he? Is he actually aware of that? Is he aware of the responsibilities he has? Because he apparently knew that a prisoner, an asylum-seeking, sex-offending prisoner, had been released from prison by mistake. Another one, which happened last week. The police weren't told for 6 days by his officials. They were finally told on Tuesday. He later released a statement saying that his officials had been working, as he put it, through the night to solve this. Was he told? Was he not? I find it inconceivable that the Justice Secretary would not be told what had gone on. Then he came to Parliament and he was asked 5 times by James Cartledge for the Conservatives, has there been any other asylum seeker prisoner who's been released by mistake? He did not answer the question. Lo and behold, the news emerges. It comes out towards the end of Prime Minister's questions. James Cartledge from the Conservatives asking the question says to the Speaker, "Hold on a second, can I make a point of order here? Can I actually put this forward again?" The Speaker says no. David Lammy says he's appalled, he's outraged. Well, if you're so appalled and you're so outraged, why did it take the system, your Ministry of Justice, your prison service, 6 days to tell the police this person was at large? He could be in Thailand, he could be in Nigeria, he could be in Australia, he could be anywhere, because he has a 6-day head start on the police. The Metropolitan Police now working apparently urgently to look after him, but it wasn't urgent enough for the prison service to give warning that he had gone out. They waited 6 days before realising, presumably, that they made a mistake. It is an utter shambles. There is no grip. There is no grip from Calamity Lammy whatsoever. And also, he apparently knew what was going on and failed to tell Parliament. That is our main story today. We're going to be talking about that with the retired prison governor in a second. Also the political editor of The Sun. We'll talk about Labour being accused of educational vandalism as it moves to dumb down the curriculum. A Reform UK council that says you've got to take down union flags or you won't get Christmas lights. And BBC bosses ignoring historians from Oxford and Cambridge universities because they wanted to push woke history. So what actually happened doesn't matter. It's just their truth. It's just their version of the BBC of the truth, as we know in regard to Donald Trump, as we know in regard to Gaza. We'll get the sport, we'll talk about Britain's sick note culture, and we'll find out what's in The Sun tomorrow. There's loads to come between now and 7, and I want to hear your views on all of it. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at TalkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 7. Let's get going here on Talk Drive. So as you may know, Gian Moore was sitting in for Julia today and we went through PMQs. I was astonished at how angry David Lammy got when he was simply questioned. He said he'd been in Parliament for 25 years and he'd never seen such a dire spectacle. Well, actually, what was happening was James Cartledge, not a particularly well-known Conservative, he's the Shadow Defence Secretary, and he was in for Kemi Badenoch today because Never Hear Keir is away yet again. Lammy, as Deputy Prime Minister, was put up, Cartledge asking the questions, and 5 times, he asked a question to which he did not receive an answer. It was a fiery PMQs, Lammy defending his department after being pressed to apologise over the accidental release of the convicted sex offender Hadesh Kabatu. This is what happened.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
That was in reply to another simple question. Hadesh Kabatu, the scumbag who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old who was wearing her school uniform whilst he was at the Bell Hotel, then he was let out mistakenly by David Lammy's officials and David Lammy's prison service. He was asked very straightforwardly, have you apologised? Have you explained? Have you lifted the phone to the family of that 14-year-old girl, that victim of that vile sex attack? The answer, of course, is no, of course he hasn't. Why would he do that? Why would he think that actually, as Justice Secretary who presided over a complete fiasco, it would be a nice thing, it would be a reasonable thing, it would be a responsible thing, it would be something showing leadership, perhaps, to lift the phone, to talk to the victim's family and to say, I'm terribly sorry for the distress. We know from so many victims of sexual assault that I've spoken to, you're always looking over your shoulder, you're always thinking about the next encounter, you're walking out, you're saying what could happen. Well, what must it have been like for that teenage girl to know that Hadish Kabatu was on the streets again, and because of pure incompetence of the prison service? So had he apologised to your family? Of course he flipping hadn't. But then the Shadow Defence Secretary asking the questions, James Cartledge, pressed the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, on whether any other migrant prisoners had been released in error. Watch this.
He's the Justice Secretary. He's responsible for the justice system. He needs to take responsibility, and I'm asking him a straight question. And I'm going to repeat it once more for the avoidance of doubt, because he didn't answer it twice. He's here to answer questions. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a clear question. Can he give an answer?
So at this point, David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister, Justice Secretary, at this point, he apparently knew, because his officials had been up all night. I'm going to actually read you. This is slightly out of sequence, but I'm going to do it because it makes sense. Deputy Prime Minister said, I am absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release of a foreign criminal wanted by the police. The Metropolitan Police is leading an urgent manhunt, and my officials have been working through the night to take him back from prison. I used to work in the Ministry of Justice. Let me tell you something. If a prisoner had been let out by mistake, the Justice Secretary would have known about it and would have been told. He's outraged and appalled, but he's not outraged and appalled enough to tell Parliament about it when he's asked 5 times. Outraged, appalled, but not enough to tell Parliament the full truth. If he knew at that stage, which I think it's inconceivable, he did not. The Metropolitan Police is leading an urgent manhunt. If it's so urgent, why did the prison service not tell the Metropolitan Police that the prisoner was on the loose? He was released in error on Wednesday. It was Tuesday, nearly a week later, before the Metropolitan Police were told about it. So the prisoner released in error, who has committed sexual crimes previously, had a 6-day head start. David Lammy is outraged and appalled, but had the opportunity 5 times to tell the nation and did not. In fact, he had an opportunity for many days to tell the public and did not. He chose not to. He chose to either keep that information inside the prison service or inside the Ministry of Justice as its parent body, or he knew and decided not to make a statement and not to know. My officials have been working through the night to take him back to prison. If they're working through the night, did they tell the Justice Secretary? The strong likelihood is that they did. I would be really, really surprised if they did not. So after the same question was put to him 5 times, David Lammy appeared rattled, he definitely got rattled, and he pivoted to Conservative failures. Just have a look and see how rattled he was.
In 25 years in this House, I've not witnessed a more shameful spectacle, frankly, than what the party opposite left in our justice system. Their criminal negligence on his watch as a former Justice Minister. They left our prisons on the brink of collapse entirely, threatening to allow offenders to run wild on our streets. He knows that. Rape victims waiting years for their day in court. He knows that. Neighbourhood policing decimated, leaving our people feeling unsafe in their communities, and they haven't learned a thing.
Really angry, blaming everybody but himself, taking absolutely no responsibility, and not answering the question. Kemi Badenoch's reaction. James Cartledge asked the Deputy Prime Minister 5 times to tell us if another migrant sex offender had been accidentally released from prison. Instead of answering, Lammy lost his temper. Now we read it has happened again, and he's been on the run for a week. This is a shambles of a government. Kemi Badenoch's not perfect, but it's very difficult to disagree with a single word of that. If you're watching on the telly, you may also have noticed, this is a tangential issue, but it's one worth making. David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister of our country, at Prime Minister's Questions, the most public event of the House of Commons all week, not wearing a poppy. He paid tribute to our veterans at the start of PMQs, and we are told by his spokesman later, said that Mr Lammy had done a tribute to veterans. The Deputy Prime Minister, all Ministers and the Prime Minister salute the fallen and those who have served our country both in the past and present. We will never forget those who fought to defend our freedom. If you will never forget them, why would you not remember to wear a poppy? This is a Deputy Prime Minister who is not up to the job, he cannot run a department, he cannot take responsibility, and he cannot answer simple, straightforward questions in the House of Commons. Yet, as far as he's concerned, it's the Conservatives. They're all at fault. It's everything they did. I'm not saying for a second that the Conservatives weren't at fault and ran the prison system brilliantly. Of course they didn't. They didn't build enough prison places. But we're in a situation where we have a Justice Secretary who has no grip.